Hello, this is Nathan with the Potomac Bead Company, and today I'm going to go over some of the different types of metal used in jewelry making, specifically the silver-based metals. Now, of course, not all of these are sterling silver or pure silver, but these are a lot of the ones that you will commonly see in jewelry making processes. We frequently have people come into the stores looking for specific things or having heard of a metal, but a lot of people don't necessarily know a lot about the metals they are using. And so this kind of gives you a basis of some of the most popular ones, going from left to right in essentially the least expensive to most expensive. So just to go over these, what's here, and this doesn't include some of the other things like sterling silver plated, Israeli silver, vermeil, German silver, Argentium silver, etc. But I'll briefly talk about those later. But in terms of these most popular, silver plated, of course, is something that is made with usually brass, and then it's electroplated with a coating to give it the silver look. The coating is usually not sterling silver, it's something else that looks silver. But it's usually a pretty good, inexpensive product. And depending what you're doing with it, and if it's not going to get a lot of wear, it may last for a while. You do want to be careful, though, if it's something that you're going to be using a lot in water, because it's only a few microns thick. Meaning, if it's constantly rubbing against your skin, there's the chance that over time you'll eventually see that brassy color underneath. Some people have problems with it turning. That could be part of someone's skin color or skin condition. But usually, it's okay for fairly inexpensive applications. The next product we're going to look at is silver-plated copper. This is very similar to regular silver-plated, with the exception that the base metal underneath is copper, which tends to be a nicer, a little bit more expensive metal. However, the problem with copper too is that over time it can turn or change. Now this piece, I believe, is probably 4 or 5 years old, and that's all it's tarnished, so I think the thickness of it is pretty good. But we have a lot of things available in it. It's nice in silver-plated things that they can be cast and then plated afterwards. So that way there's a lot of options of things that can be made in silver-plated or silver-plated copper. There's more limitations to things like silver-filled. The next thing we'll look at is probably one of our favorite of the silver metal options. It's pewter. Pewter is an alloy, meaning it's a mix between tin and usually what we get is zinc. Some pewter alloys may have copper or several other metals in it, but we try to make sure that what we're getting is just a tin zinc alloy. There also used to be lead in a lot of pewters, but today that is very rare. Again, we carry nothing with lead in it. The nice thing about pewter is that it really never changes. So it does not tarnish at all. It comes quite shiny and nice from the beginning. And it's also fairly inexpensive. So it's a great option for many, many applications, especially as an alternative to sterling silver. In our opinion, it actually lasts better because you don't have to constantly polish it, and it still maintains that great look, and it's a nice metal to begin with. The next two things we'll go over are silver-filled and sterling silver. Silver-filled is fairly new, so we'll talk about sterling silver first. Sterling silver is 92.5% real silver. The other 7.5% is copper. That silver is a fairly malleable metal. It's also fairly soft, so the copper actually hardens it a lot. Because of the copper content, however, that is the reason that sterling silver is known to tarnish. And again, depending how it's conditioned, how it's kept, that can happen fairly quickly or it can take a long time. There's also various types of electronic platings that can be put over it to protect it further. But sterling silver for years has been a very popular metal. Probably as recently as 7 or 8 years ago, it was still fairly inexpensive and commonly used. Today, a lot of these others tend to be more commonly used simply because this price of sterling silver has fluctuated so much, particularly in the last 5 years. I think prices have tripled, quadrupled, or more. So even though they've lowered a little bit today, we tend to push people towards some of the slightly less expensive options simply because there's a lot more possibilities. Silver filled, as an alternative to sterling silver, is a layer of brass bonded to a layer of silver. So it is a layer of pure silver over top of a layer of brass. Where silver plated would be just a few microns thick, this is probably hundreds of times thicker. Even though it's not a plating, it's a bonded process. The thickness that you would never wear through it because there's so much silver in it. And on top of that, you can hammer it. You can do your own intentional tarnishing to it. There's a lot of options. You can do almost everything to silver filled that you would to sterling silver if you were working with sheet or wire or something like that. The one limitation with silver filled as well as gold filled products is that the bonding process happens when it is still in a sheet or a tube form. So there's a lot more limitations on shapes. You probably would not be able to make this or this or this with silver filled because these are all cast. They're put in a casting machine, they're tumbled, etc. But you can't really cast silver filled, so it has to start as a tube, which would be like this one, or as wire, which is kind of the same thing, or as sheet. So that is the one limitation of silver filled, but it is growing in popularity, and we tend to carry more and more of it all the time. The final option that we're looking at here is Thai silver, or pure silver. Thai silver, it tends to be 99%, maybe slightly higher, 99.5% pure silver. And it's usually handmade in the hills of northern Thailand. It's been popular for years, but again, given the price of silver, it's gone down more recently. A couple other things that we will go over briefly. There's this. We now get this made in Italy. This is a brass chain, which is then electroplated several times with sterling silver. So it's a very nice silver chain, and then it's plated again with an E-coating to prevent it from tarnishing. So it stays shiny, it stays nice. My wife has worn a bracelet with it for months, even going whitewater rafting, etc., and nothing has ever come off. So we're really enjoying this sterling silver plating over top of some other products. We may try them again in the future. Some of our Miyuki sea beads are also plated that way with a sterling silver finish. So there are some nice options like that. There's a few other things out there that you may hear from time to time, like German silver. That is a nickel-based product, so we tend not to buy anything like that. Sometimes people also just put names on products. They may call it blank silver, and because the word silver is in the name, people assume it is sterling silver or assume that it's mostly silver. That isn't always the case. It may just mean that it's a fancy name for something that has a silver color. So do be careful about purchasing things like that if you don't know the exact origins. There's also a few other types of popular silvers out there. Israeli silver is another mostly pure silver that is often done in hollow shapes. There's vermeil, which is sterling silver plated with gold. So it's a sterling silver base, the same way that his copper is plated with silver, it's silver plated with gold. And there's Argentium silver, which replaces its copper content in, like sterling silver, it's 92.5% silver, but instead of the 7.5% copper, it actually uses germanium. But again, it's something that you may see from time to time, but it hasn't gained a lot of widespread popularity. Outside of most of what's been mentioned here, there may be other things that we're not familiar with, but I would make sure you research whatever you may be looking at buying, because you'll often see a lot of places where it just says silver. Well, does that mean it's silver? Does that mean it's sterling silver? Or does that mean it's a silver color? So, if you don't know the answer, try to find somebody who may, and maybe even look at the price, because that may also give you an indication of what it really is. With a lot of our packaging, we try to make sure that we are properly labeling everything that we sell And when we do that, we often will use abbreviations just because we have character limits in our software. So silver plated, for example, may be SP. Silver plated or silver coated copper may be SPC or SCC. Pewter, we just say pewter. Silver filled is SF. Sterling silver is SS. And then Thai silver, we'll usually say Thai silver or Thai or something like that. But anyway, we hope you enjoy learning a little bit more about the silver products that often get used. If you have any questions, feel free to send them to us, either Facebook, YouTube, or any of the other social media channels in which we're involved. We invite you to watch more videos and ask us questions, visit our stores, and hope to see you soon. Thanks.